Okay, now we're going to be demonstrating jacket vents, two different styles of jacket vents.
So the first one we're doing is a single welt at the back here. So this is a vent, we have a sleeve vent. This is the centre back vent here. Now this is the unlined version, so it looks finished. And you do have, with the unlined version, you end up with a row of stitching along there because you need to hold the vent back. Whereas with the lined version, you don't need that. But that's the only row of stitching that we're putting on the outside of the garment here. So if you flip to the inside, you can see that it's really nicely finished. So we do have overlocked edges, but the overlocking is turned under and stitched. And this has the facing. So this is a fold back here. You can see the fold back and then the separate facing, and this is just the fold back here. Okay, and again that edge is overlocked and turned under, so really a nice finish on the inside.
Lovely.
These are our pieces. So we have the fold back, so this is the one folds back this way, and it's not so it's sort of self-faced, and so we have a piece of interfacing here, and this piece of interfacing is the same shape as our facing piece which sews on the other side. So you can see we've had a fusing with the sticky side down here, sticky side down on this side, and what's going to happen on this side is that's going to stitch on there, and then that's going to flip back that way there. Okay, so a bit of an explanation, but you'll see how it works as we go along.
We're here at the machine with the back jacket pieces.
So this is based on our semi-fitted jacket block, and it just has a dart in the back. So we're going to sew the darts first. Make sure the interfacing is facing up on this side, and you've got a mirrored piece here, so the darts are all going to be on the inside of the garment. We have our shoulder dart, so 2 notches at the shoulder and 1 notch down further here. So just fold in half. I'm sure you've sewn shoulder dart before. So match the notches up at the top, and then just go to 1 centimetre past. Oops, and I've still got to turn my stitch length down. Okay, so that one at the top there. And then our waist darts. So now our waist darts, we have 4 drill holes. We have 1 at the top, we have 2 at the waist, and we have 1 down the bottom. So we're going to fold, so we match up so it's the top drill hole there, bottom drill hole there. So fold those so that you've got a fold all the way down, just starting at the top drill hole there. So 1 centimetre back from the drill hole at the top. And make sure, as you're going down to the bottom, that the distance from the fold to the drill hole is even on the top and the bottom. And then we're going to aim for, we have to do so 0.5 past the drill hole. So as you're coming down to it, make it a nice curve and stop at that point. So we're not angling it, we're actually curving around the drill hole. And if you need to as well, you can stick a pin in there so you know where you're headed. And then aim for the drill hole, but we're actually going to sew 1 centimetre past. Okay, so it's a nice shape for a dart. And I'll just do the same on the other side before I give them a press.
Okay, so pressing the darts.
So these are we're just going to give our 2 back pieces a press. So the shoulder dart will get pressed towards the centre back, and our waist dart as well gets pressed towards the centre back. So pull the dart open to get in there. Make sure you try and keep it as flat as you can as you press it, so you don't end up with any pleats at the top or the bottom. Now there's darts in the back of this, but your jacket or coat might not have darts in the back, but we're just showing you how to do them anyway. So that's one, and the other one towards the centre back of the shoulder dart, and then towards the back. Okay, so there are back darts pressed.
So we're here at the Overlocker.
So we just have to, the piece that has the interfacing on it, the facing section here, so that's going to fold back. So we just have to finish this edge off. So all we're doing is overlocking down this edge here. So just overlock down that edge there.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to go to the machine and we'll pin stitch that back.
Yes.
So we're at the machine, we're just going to stitch this back so that it's a nice finish here. And all I'm doing, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it on the inside. So you can actually see the overlocking, how much I've turned it back. And then we're going to pin stitch. So we're literally just folding it back. You can see this, the edge of the overlocking is there. So it's literally just an extra millimetre. So the edge is still finished, but it's not going to fray because it's overlocked. Okay, so you just see that row of stitching on the outside there, and that's done.
Yes.
Okay, so here we've got this is the left back piece, and we've got our facing section here. Now you'll see that it's actually short. That's because you've got a notch there, and the notch indicates the hem. And because we're going to cut a little bit of that away anyway, we don't need this piece to go all the way down to the hem. It just goes a centimetre past the fold line there. Okay, so we'll flip this over. So make sure the interfacing is facing down towards the table, so you've got the right sides together. And we're just going to stitch this 6mm or a foot width down. Okay, and I've stopped stitching there because that's the bottom of the facing piece. Now, because the facing piece is going to be on the inside, we want to do a row of understitching here. So with the understitching, fold the seam allowances towards the facing, and you actually stitch through the 3 layers. So you're not stitching on this single layer, you're stitching through these 3 layers here. So you can see my seam allowance facing that way towards the facing. And then we'll do a little pin stitch on top of the facing, not on this side. Okay, and you'll see because we've stitched on the facing there, you can see it maybe better in the shadow, and so that when that rolls, it'll roll under nicely and you don't see the seam or the stitching.
Yes.
Now, because we've got a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance down the back here, because we're going to overlock
You've got
that
the backs
edge
together.
and fold it down. Yep. Got our backs together, so darts facing out and out.
Right
and
sides.
here's our right sides together, exactly. Now you should have a drill hole here, so there'll be a drill hole on one piece. It may have been covered up slightly with the when the interfacing was put on, but hopefully you can find. If you can't find it, ask for the pattern and we can find it again. And then this is the side with the facing on it. Now we're not going to sew through the facing yet. We've got our drill hole there. So we're going to line both of the drill holes up, and we want to line this raw edge here up as well. And what I would do before, because we're going to start sewing from the top, I would put a pin in here just to hold these two together. Okay, so from the top, it's a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. So what we got here, when I lined this up, there's no, so it's not this mark here, because that would actually be 3/4. It's lined up with the edge of the 2. Okay, so this edge here on the 2 would be 1.5 centimetres.
Measure with your tape measure.
Yeah, but check with your tape measure exactly so that you've got the right measurement. So you don't have any notches down the back here, so just make sure that it's all nice and level. You don't have any bulgy bits. And when you're sewing these wider seams, keep an eye on the position that you found, which indicates the 1.5. Don't look at the needle. Look at the edge of the fabric. Now when we get down towards the bottom here, there's our drill hole. We're not going to sew to the drill hole. Remember, we need to sew 1/2 centimetre past the drill hole and below the drill hole so that it's completely covered. So when you get down a bit lower, you can start aiming towards that spot, so that when you get down here, the edge of the foot lines up with the drill hole. Okay, so I've just gone past it that way and then down there. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to overlock down both of the centre back edges, but before we do that, we need to secure our facing onto this edge here. So the first thing we need to do is just to fold that top edge back there 1 centimetre, and we're just going to run, it can just be a foot width across there. So we've literally just held down that top section there. Now, what's going to happen here is, because we want this centre back seam to be open, I'll just open it up here. This seam is going to go this way, and we want this to go this way, but of course if I push that back there, all that goes underneath. So what I need to do is actually clip in at this part here to push that seam open. So just where it starts to go into the curve, which is like maybe a centimetre and a half below this top edge here. So we're just going to clip into that top layer, not to both of them, just this one layer here, and we're going to force that back there. Okay, so we're going to do now, we've got, because this is now going that way, this will line up here. And then this side here, these 3 layers, so you've got the trimmed off layer under there, and it will line up. So the edge, these edges line up here, this edge lines up here, so we're just going to stitch through those 3 layers to hold all of them together, so they're all held together when we overlock. So just sort of close to the edge. Okay, so they're all held together now, so that will flap as one. And then we just need to turn this upside down, and just on this other side here, so you've got this cut short, and because we're going to overlock down here all in one go, we really need these to be secure when we put them into the overlocker, otherwise they're going to slip around. So we're literally just, so you've got that little bit there, we're just going to stitch those together. Okay, just to hold them together.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the overlocker, and we'll overlock down both sides of our centre back.
Okay, you're at the overlocker.
So I've opened up the centre back seam here. I haven't pressed it yet, but just opened it up, and now we need to just sew down. Now, sometimes this can be a little bit tricky because you've got the 3 layers here and only the single layer here. Just see how you go. You might need to give a little bit of a pull from the back as we take it through. You can see, because I've stitched these 3 layers together, it's much easier to finish off this edge here. Okay, so that's one edge done, and then we're going to turn it around and start at the bottom on this side and go up this way. So just make sure you keep that open. Okay, so just take that slowly, and you'll see with my overlocking, it's actually gone slightly off the edge of the fabric, but remember that we're going to turn that back under, and that's going to be pin stitched anyway, so you won't see that.
Great.
Okay, so we're ready to pin.
Yeah, back at the sewing machine.
So we have both edges here, and we just want to turn those under and pin stitch them. So yeah, so this time we're folding it. So we've got the wrong side facing up, folding the overlocking back like that. And before we did a foot width stitch. This time we're just going to do a pin stitch along the edge here. And because this overlocking is quite thick, we only end up with quite a small seam allowance, like 1 centimetre or slightly less. You can make this, you can adjust the seam allowance here. So the seam allowance for our centre back could be 2 centimetres. That doesn't affect anything really. I've just taken that through, so now I'm on the back of the facing. Okay, so that's our one side, and then flip it over to the other, and you can see how that's the finish now, how it's overlocked edge and just a pin stitch on the other side. And so now we're going to flip it over, and we're going to start on this curve here.
And
so
if it were an alternative finish, you could do a bind?
there could be a bind here as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You could bind that edge, but then you would need to go with a bigger seam allowance, I think, though, for a bind.
Yeah.
So this one here, because this is quite chunky, and we've got 3 layers, I'm actually going to start this. I'm going to start with a wider stitch, just so that everything gets held in place. But as we come up around the curve here, I'm going to taper it so that by the time we get up to the single layer of the centre back seam, it will only be a pin stitch along the edge. And remember, with any of these, if you're having trouble, please ask for help. Okay, so we'll just give that a press shortly down the back there. Okay, so now we need to bag out our bottom edges here, but before we do that, I'm going to overlock our hem along here.
Yes, back at the overlocker.
So we're just overlocking the bottom here. We'll start at the side seam.
It's the right side up.
Right side facing up, yes, it starts from the inside. When you were sewing this for real, you'd already have the front attached, so you'd actually be sewing from the centre front all the way through to the back here.
Yep.
And with this one here, you should have a notch there, so you can just start the overlocking from the notch. You don't have to start all the way at the edge there, although it doesn't matter a great deal if you don't do it that way. So yeah, you could start all the way at the edge here. It just means that if you start here at the notch, there's just slightly less bulk. That's all in the seam allowance.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the inside, our inside finish. We just have to do the hem. So this is our fold back facing, which is all in one piece. We need to bag out this bottom edge here, and we need to bag out this edge here. So we'll do this one first. So what we're going to do is we need to fold this back on itself this way. So we're folding it to the outside of the garment, and then just make sure that the distance here is nice and even. So it's a 4 centimetre hem. We're going to stitch it at 1 centimetre, so it should be 3 centimetres from here to here, and then 1 centimetre. Okay, so we'll just make sure, that these seam allowances here are facing this way as well. And you can see that that's why we didn't have to bother so much about overlocking this bottom edge here, because this is going to be inside. And what I'm going to also do is just trim this corner away a little bit too, because we're going to flip this up inside. So push the seam allowance towards the facing, and then just bag out that corner there.
Lovely.
Okay, and if you need to, you can use your snips, or you can use a pin if you just need to work that corner out. Don't pull too hard on that corner. So that's our top corner done there. And we just need to do this one here. So remember, you've got the notch. So on this side, you fold it back on the notch. So it's not right on the edge of the interfacing there. It's actually the notch.
Right sides together.
Right sides together. Yep. So we're folding it. You can see there's the twist because we're folding it to the outside, and then a 1 centimetre
4 centimeters from the
So
edge.
4 centimeters, so 1 centimeter from the edge of the fusing, or 4 centimeters from the edge there. And with this one as well, just to get rid of some of that bulk, we can actually trim that corner away there.
Great.
Okay, and then fold that to the facing, and that corner goes out. And when you fold it out, just make sure that the lengths match up. So they're the same length here. And so what we'll do now, before we finish this edge here and do our stitching, we'll just take it to the iron and we'll give it a press. Okay.
We're here at the ironing board.
So we've got everything nice and flat here. Our bottom edges are bagged out. And we need to do this stitch along here, but just before we do that, we're going to make sure everything's sitting nice and flat. It's been pressed well. And we're also going to press up our centre back seam here. And you can see that seam allowance has come out a little bit small because we've turned the overlocking back. So you could actually have this as a, it's 1.5. You could have it as a 2 centimetre centre back seam allowance, and that would be a little bit wider finished. But remember too that it's also very obvious because we've got contrast stitching here. So, and we also just want to press up this hem.
Lovely.
And you should have a notch on the side seam, and there's a little bit of extra fullness there, but that should press out. Yes, you can see there's a tiny bit of fullness there because because of the dart, this bottom edge is slightly curved, but that's fine for it to be like that. So flip to the outside, and on the outside. Now we're just going to have a row of stitching here. So even though it's stitched all the way down to here, we're going to sort of work from the diagonal up here, do a row of stitching there on the machine.
Okay, you're just marking it.
So what I've done is I've put a pin here, so the pin's going to show where I'll stop and where I want to start, because it's always going to look better if you do this stitching on the outside. Just remember which end of the pin you're going to follow. And try not to sew through the pin either. So once you've got it in, like there's my little pin there. So once I've got it into position, I'm going to pull that pin out. That's where I'm going to start. And then I'm going to aim for this end here of the pin. If this is bamboozling you a little bit, you can do it from the inside so you can see exactly where you are. Okay, our stitching there.
Yeah, and always look at the samples that are available, guys.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, what you can do here too, this would have to be, probably because it's an unlined garment, you might actually have a row of stitching along here, so you can actually see the stitching on the outside. Another option would be you could turn this under, which I've done on the other sample, turn this under and pin stitch this, and then you'd probably have to hand catch it onto the dart. So it would be caught here, and catch it onto the side seams. Yep. And you could also maybe use some fusible tape in there as well, just to do that, and then fuse the tape, so to skewer the hem up if you weren't top stitching through all of the layers. But at this point, this is the end of our unlined vent.
Fantastic.